Welcome back as we look at Exodus 19 through to the next section of Scripture as we have the revelation of the Ten Commandments as Moses ascends onto the mountain described here in Exodus 19. I've asked what stood out
Excuse me,
most
sir.
in Exodus to the students, and a number of students have pointed out that
Oh,
God has been with us and we are with him.
excuse
He's been with the Israelites,
me,
but often they failed to get to the promised
sir.
land. And they were not with
Sir,
God. Yes.
Babu Dada is saying he is waiting.
Yes. I will click the admit. We won't leave him from the journey to the promised land. We will admit him and he can journey with us. Others have said that Um, since God protects us and guides us, it's important that we listen to his laws because he makes us wise. And we are reminded that doing the right thing brings blessing, but doing the wrong thing brings a curse. But when we do wrong, God can forgive and restore. So let's turn now to Exodus 19, where we look at the revelation of the law to Moses. On the third month after they left Egypt, on their journey, they came to the desert of Sinai and they came to Mount Sinai. And Moses went up on the mountain. And I'm reminded of the importance of finding time and taking time to get up on the mountain with God, to find time with God. And God called to Moses from this mountain. And I like to take time every day to get time alone with God to pray. And often when I pray, I say, God, what are you saying to me today? And I allow God to put thoughts in my mind and fill me with thoughts and ideas. And I think this is important. I also listen to others as well because I want God to guide me through others. And I want to get the balance, God guiding me, God guiding through others as well. And then Moses went up to God on the mountain and said, this is what you are to do. You've seen what he did as he delivered and carried the people. And now God said, if you obey me fully, if you keep my wisdom, if you keep my covenant relationship, and we need both. We need the wisdom that comes from laws to do the right thing, but we also need relationship that comes from relating to God. Then out of all the nations, you'll be treasured, you'll be special, you'll be a treasured possession. The whole earth is mine, but you will be a kingdom of priests and a holy nation to me if you listen and if you obey and if you are in relationship with me. So Moses went back and he gathered the elders and set before them the words that the Lord God had revealed. And the Lord said, I'm going to descend on a cloud and I'm going to reveal. And so Moses did that. And then we read then in verse 20 that God spoke firstly 10 commandments, and the first commandments, commandments 1 to 5, really are about our relationship with God and his goodness. So central and first is that we need a good relationship with God and with truth and with goodness. So God said, firstly, who is the one that delivers you and brings good into your life? Who's the one who brings you out of slavery and out of captivity into goodness and into God's good purposes? And it is God, isn't it? And it's important to spend time with God, both on our own and as a group. And then in verse 2, he reminds us that we need to remember what God has done. And there's a number of ways in which I remember the good things that God has done. So let's be reminded of, Harriet, can you go get Grandma to the front door? So in Genesis 20, there's a number of things that we are reminded of there. So can I get you now to take a couple of minutes to write down what are some of the laws that stand out to you from Exodus 20? So, Phoebe and Tricia, what stood out to you from the Ten Commandments? What can we learn? And then Rebecca, what can we learn from the Ten Commandments?
Yes, sir. Thus are here 10 commandments. So we learn. So what we have to do. So what we have to not to do. So 10 commandments is teaching us to love your God, love your family, honor your father. You shall not steal. You shall not give false testimony in your neighbors, your brothers. So its testimony encourages us. So as soon as possible, love your neighbors. So honor your father and mother. Firstly, you have to love your God. Only God is look here and there. Only look God. God.
So good. So the Ten Commandments teach us what to do, what not to do, and also to love God, care for family, love our neighbour, and do the right thing and not do the wrong thing. Very good. Rebecca, what do the Ten Commandments teach us?
We should obey our God's commandments. We should love our God with all of our heart, mind, and soul, and we should love our neighbor.
Very good. So love God with all our heart, mind, and soul, and love our neighbour as ourselves. Babu and then Ismail. What do the Ten Commandments teach us?
Yeah, 10 commandments just teach us obeying God's words.
Yes, I like that. So we should follow God, shouldn't we? We should listen to God, we should hear God, and then we should obey, and then we should have our conscience and heart sensitive to what God is saying. Babu or Pal, what is God saying here through the Ten Commandments to us?
Yeah, God is saying us to be apart from sin, and
Mm.
we have to be, if we want to be God's people, then we have to obey Him, and we have to do whatever the things that God has written here. And according to the Ten Commandments, we can know that He is the Redeemer, and He has redeemed us from our sin. And He wants us to obey Him, because upcoming day we may not fall in sin and like slavery.
So good. We don't want to fall into sin, and we don't want to fall into slavery. And through obeying God, we can ensure that we don't fall into sin and slavery. As Anush has said, it teaches me and emphasizes that we should worship God and love neighbor and family. So all of these are part of the teachings in the Ten Commandments, particularly beginning with loving God, hearing God, respecting God, and not allowing other images to take the place of God. And certainly there are other things in life that can take the place of God, and often we may trust in things rather than trusting in God. And we need to remember that it's only God that lasts forever and for all things. And it's only God who is truly powerful. Other things, like an idol made of rock or stone, or like some other thing that we trust in, will let us down. But God does not let us down. We're reminded too that when people sin, it passes on to children and children to third and fourth generation. But when people love, it passes on to generation and generation, both to our children, to those we teach, those we minister to. We're reminded that the words we speak are important. They can be uplifting and honouring to God, or they can be words that are damaging. And then there is a verse in the middle, verse 8, which reminds us about the Sabbath. And the Sabbath is both honoring God, but also the Sabbath is resting, bringing benefit to us. And it reminds us of the connection between, if you put God first and if you honor God, it'll bring health and life to you. If you put rest first and exercise and health first, then that will be important. So it's said here that we should take a day each week, and we could also take a time each year, which could be for a week or longer, where we set aside time for God. So for 6 days and for 8 hours a day or 10 hours a day, we may labour and work hard, but on the 7th day should be a time of rest and worship. And also, every day we should take some time to rest and worship for a few hours. And also, those who work with us and for us, we should give them time to rest and worship. I know some people who will give some time at their workplace whereby they'll have some time to gather and to rest and to celebrate, be more restful at that time, and to pray and to worship and to look to God at that time. And that is so important. And as a number of you said, family is so important. Our extended family is important, and our children are important. It's important that we honour those who've gone before us and who are older than us. We honour those and care and love those who are the same or similar age to us, and we honour those who are younger and our children. And then we have some specific ways in which we should relate to one another. And John Calvin says we shouldn't just say, "You shall not murder." We should say, "You should give life to people." We shouldn't just hold back from people. We should give and be generous to people that brings life to them. We shouldn't just turn our eyes to others and be unfaithful. We should be faithful when we are married or in a family. We need to be faithful there. We shouldn't lie or bear false testimony. Rather, we should bring truth and life-giving words to others that build them up. We shouldn't covet or desire what other people have, but rather we should value and celebrate the blessing that we have, and we should be generous and happy, delightful for what we have, and giving to others. And so this is a list very briefly of 10 guidelines, and then there are other guidelines that we are given as well. That is, it's good to have a place where we can remember a sacrifice, and we as Christians remember the sacrifice that has been made with Jesus. And so we might have a place where we remember that sacrifice. In chapter 21, we're reminded that we need to be kind to those who work for us and with us. Chapter 21, we're reminded that we need to be careful so that no one gets injured or hurt. And if people are not doing well, we need to be caring for them. So we need to take responsibility. We need to be caring for property so that people's property is not harmed, and we need to be thoughtful. And if we ever borrow something, we need to be careful with that so that it is not damaged. We need to show responsibility to others who we have relationship with in our family, in marriage, or other relationships. And there are guidelines that are given here for healthy relationships one for another. In chapter 23, we should not tell false words or lie or tell what is wrong. We should not be malicious or say negative words about a person. We should not accept bribes or give bribes, and it's very tempting to use gifts in order to persuade people. We should not. We should tell the truth and say, this is why we believe something is good. Yes, we can have a meal. Yes, we can have a celebration, but we should not make that the reason why we seek to persuade people with a gift there. There are guidelines on every 7th year or every 7 or whatever months we might set aside time for rest. There are guidelines for having annual festivals, and so there can be festivals in the year, and there can also be festivals where you might celebrate for people in your group. So you might think in your church, in your group, what can we celebrate? And once a month, you might find something that you can celebrate and say, God has been good, blessed. Some churches celebrate birthdays when someone has a birthday, or some people celebrate baptisms or celebrate different events that we could celebrate. Welcome, Sush. Sush, what are some
Thank you so much, sir.
What are some of the things, Sush, that are celebrated in Nepal? In Australia, we celebrate Christmas, where we remember Jesus is born. We celebrate Easter, where we remember Jesus died and rose again and gave life to us. We celebrate New Year's Day. We say that's the beginning of a new year, and sometimes we say, let's make a commitment to do things well. And we celebrate birthdays. And weddings and baptisms. What are some days that are celebrated in Nepal, Sush?
Yes, sir. Same as that. Like we also celebrate Easter Sunday, and we also celebrate Passion Weeks, and we celebrate baptism, Lord's Suppers, marriage, and we celebrate Good Friday, and
Yes.
we also celebrate Christmas. Everything you, sir.
Yes, yes. So I think times of celebration can be important, can't they? They bring the family together, they bring the church together. And so in Moses' time, they celebrated a feast of unleavened bread, which reminded them that they had to rush to leave Egypt to go to the promised land, and they didn't have time to put the yeast in the bread. This also reminded them that yeast can be like sin, watch out for it, and we want to keep our lives pure. So that was a festival that they celebrated. Another festival that they celebrated was the harvest of first fruits. And so in some Anglican churches, they have Harvest Sunday, where they bring in some of the harvest from the farm and they celebrate the harvest of the fruits. And so a harvest festival can be another day, and Pentateuch can also be a day of celebrating. So days of celebrating can be quite important. Sush, what are the days of celebrating in the Hindu tradition?
They have many celebrations, sir. They celebrate Shivaratri,
Wow.
and they celebrate Teej, and there are many things, sir. And they celebrate,
Mm.
like, there are the bunch of lists, sir, of celebration of Hindus. So I
Yes.
can't.
And Sush,
Yes, sir.
how do we respond to Hindu celebrations? So if you're in a town or in Kathmandu and you
Yes, sir.
have people celebrating the Hindu festival, I guess we have 5 ways you can respond. One is you can separate. Another way is you can get fully involved and celebrate with the Hindus. And then there is a middle position, which does not fully separate, but does not get fully involved, but says we honor and respect and we find a middle position. Sush, what do you think is the best way? Separation, quite involved, or a middle position, which is a little bit involved, but also, thoughtful in the middle position? What's your thoughts, Sush?
Yes, sir. I think as a salt and light of God, so I
Mm,
think it's better to respect their celebration and not involving,
mm.
but respect. That could be good, sir.
Yes, yes, I think that is wise, isn't it? Isn't it? Is to respect, show value of the people and value of culture, but and say we value what you're doing, but we also have Jesus, and build a dialogue between them and us. Does anyone else have thoughts or questions on how we relate to different celebrations? Well, what are your thoughts if we have Hindu people?
Sir, what was the question?
So the question is, when you are in a Hindu town or a Hindu part of Kathmandu and people have a celebration, so when Hindus celebrate, um, do we separate? So one is to separate from them. The other is get very involved. Or is there a middle position? In the middle position, we are sort of thoughtful, we respect. What do you think is the best response?
Yeah, we have to respect everyone's celebration, like
Mm,
Hindu also, Buddhist also, Islam also. As
mm,
in Nepal, I live in village area, and we have Hindus and Buddhism. So they used to celebrate, and while they have a celebration of like some festival or something, they used to call us also as a guest, and we used to go. We used to respect their word, and we used to go and have a meal and come back. So when in our stores also, when we celebrate the Christmas and other things, we also used to call them as a guest, and they used to come. And yeah, we have to respect each others. We can involve, but not fully. We can go and have talk, have look, like that.
That's a very thoughtful, balanced, relational way which respects them and encourages them to show respect for our faith in God and Jesus as well. And it opens up a dialogue between the two. So I like what Enosh says: be thoughtful and respectful in your relationship, particularly with other religions. So I think these are very valuable reflections. So we've looked at the law, and then we've looked at these celebrations, and we're reminded that while laws are important, grace is also important. While celebration is important, we also value what we have in God and Jesus. We're reminded that in the laws, they teach us about the character of God, that he is good and he has authority. We're also reminded of the big picture, that God is giving instructions in order to guide the people as they go forward. And then we come to the building of a place where God can be honored and respected in Exodus 25, when we come to the building of the tabernacle. So as we come to Exodus 25, we read the instructions that are given for the building of the tabernacle. And the Lord said to Moses, to the Israelites, when you bring an offering, and so in their culture, their offering might have been to bring an animal or to bring some plants from their garden. And then when you bring that, you were to follow these guidelines. And then in the tabernacle, they would have an Ark of Covenant, that is a piece of furniture that is made of acacia wood, and then it would have on it the winged angels, and it would have poles to carry it. In the furniture of the tabernacle, there would also be a table on which there would be the objects that are placed on the table. There would be a lampstand, which would be a reminder of the light of God that has been shown to us. In chapter 26, we're reminded that the tabernacle tent, and what I like about the tabernacle tent is that it's on the move. It's a missionary tent in which the people would gather, and they would be able to hear the word of God. They would be able to sing and worship and celebrate. And they would gather for 1 month of the year and have a celebration in the tabernacle. And it would be a fine time to get excited about what they were hearing. It was a tremendous time in a tremendous place. And the offerings, while there was a little bit of the somber about sin, there was also celebration that they had been freed from sin, and they were able to celebrate the goodness that they were able to enter into. So in the tabernacle tent, there were certain furnishings, and if you are meeting in a church or even in a home, you may have furnishings that are a reminder of the things that we believe. And in the tabernacle in Moses' time, there were a number of furnishings, including a seat that was called the mercy seat, that was a reminder of mercy and kindness of God. And there was also a holy place that was a reminder of the holiness of God. And there were certain guidelines and rules for coming into the tabernacle. And eventually Solomon would build a temple that was based on these. So we're reminded of the value in ancient times. They would see there was value in bringing sacrifices, and Hindus may see value in bringing sacrifices, but we see that the much better sacrifice is when a person gives something of their lives, and particularly when Jesus gave something of his God life to the world in order to bring all people to life in God. We're reminded that when you enter a temple, you may have respect for the divine, but in a Christian gathering, often it's less like a temple because we want to get people to see the real living God, not just representations of God. We want much more. Sometimes a home can be a great place to focus on the living God. Sush, what do you think of the lessons we can learn from tabernacle, temple, sacrifice? They seem so different to what we are talking about here with a home or a church or a hall where we're looking to Jesus. What do you think of tabernacles and temples and sacrifices? Yeah, Sush, what are your thoughts?
In the Old Testament, it is mentioned it's the physical things, physical, or it is, and some like the priest who comes nearby God and uses the things like tabernacles. And coming to New Testament, I think so it is all about the church of God, or the we people are the temple as well. The sacrificing the things, all about talking about ourselves and our life. So I think so it is closely related to our life in this contemporary context or in New Testament context. I think that may be.
That is very, very good, Kush. I really like what you've said there, Sush. Is a temple and tabernacle is a physical thing which people who practice that, and in the Catholic Church and some Anglican churches, they like to have a church which has physical things that point us to God. But the danger is that they can take the place of us as the people of God, as the temple. I like what you're saying there, Sush, is that much better than having a building is having people who are open to God transforming, changing them, and having God dwell in their lives. You can have a building that you go to each Saturday and not have much change in your own life. So I like what you're saying there, Sush. And in having a priest in, say, a Catholic church or an Anglican church, that can be good because the priest can help us come to God and read things. But if the priest is at the front and we are all at the back, we can feel separated and we may not have as much of God living in us. Whereas in a more evangelical church, and the word evangelical means gospel, good news, church, a Billy Graham church, then Baptist or Presbyterian or Methodist. We often don't want so much emphasis on a priest and so much emphasis on physical things. We want emphasis on the people who are themselves the indwelling presence of God, who are themselves making sacrifice in their own lives, who are themselves meeting with God in their lives, in homes, in a church hall, as they look to Jesus. Do you have further thoughts on that, Sush?
So, no, sir, you have already explained that much better.
Yeah, thank you. I've not explained much, Sush. I've just quoted you. You said good things. Thank you. I think that was very good. That was very good. We should congratulate Sush on those thoughts because I think they were very good. Are there any other thoughts that people have from these ideas about tabernacle that we have there? So the tabernacle is cultural in some ways, isn't it? The tabernacle was useful, as Sush and others have said, in that it gave a physical place and it gave an opportunity for sacrifices. But there is a danger if it's not us. Can I ask you to take 2 or 3 minutes now to write down what are your thoughts on the lessons we can learn from tabernacles and temples, physical things and priests, as opposed to the more evangelical way of placing an emphasis on people as the place where God dwells, and the Gospels and the Apostle Paul pointing us to people. So can I get everyone to write something down on that and to write it in chat too, if you have an opportunity? Sush, can I get you to just tell everyone what I've asked in Nepali, please?
हुन्छ त्यही अब जसरी चाहिँ पुरानो करारमा चाहिँ टेबर्नेकललाई अथवा मन्दिरलाई चाहिँ एउटा कुन तरिकाले गरेको छ अनि अहिले हामी यसलाई कसरी बुझ्छौँ भन्ने कुराहरू चाहिँ यहाँनिर सोधे हुन्छ सरले। तपाईँहरूले चाहिँ आफ्नो कपीमा नोट डाउन गर्नुहोला अनि सक्नुहुन्छ भने यता च्याट बक्समा पनि राख्न सक्नुहुन्छ है। जय मसी, धन्यवाद। ओके सर, डन।
Yeah, thank you. So if you have opportunity, thanks for that, Sush, much appreciated. And if others have opportunity to post in there, then that's good on chat. Or if you have opportunity to write it down yourself, I encourage you to write down this important insight that we have about the temples and about what it means for us. And I think there's value in both. If you've got a temple or a tabernacle, or if you've got a church cathedral, then that is valuable. If you've got priests, then that can be valuable in your tradition. But it's important to remember the gospel Jesus tradition that places an emphasis on the presence of God living in us as people, which is such a valuable gospel Jesus tradition. And a church, and the word for church is ecclesia, and the ecclesia is a called out gathering. And the called out gathering is to make decisions or to set out on mission. So there are mission people who are called out. And the emphasis in church is on the people who are called to mission, who are called to a purpose for God. And they're all involved, from the youngest to the oldest. Whereas if you place an emphasis on priests, there can be a certain separation. I like what Powell has written, that a tabernacle is a place for God, and God comes to that. And if you have the money to build a building and make it glorious, then people can gather there. But it's not always the case. You don't always need that amount of money. It's good if you have it, but you don't always have that sort of money available. In Barcelona, in Spain, there is a vision for building a new church by Gaudi, who is an artist there. And about 140 years ago, Gaudi had this vision for building a church which is called the Sagrada Familiar, and I think it's taken it's taken a long time. So in 1882, they began work on building this church there where people would meet. And can you see the picture of the church that they've been building in Spain? And so it's they've been working on that since 1882. And in the next couple of years, I think they are hoping to complete the building of this church. So it is quite intriguing, the vision that people can have for building a particular church. So this is the inside of the church. There's the outside of the church in Barcelona, in Spain, and they are hoping to complete the building of this church. It's taken 137 years, I think, to complete the building of the church. So there's not many people who take that long to build what is like it's a Catholic church in Spain. So thank you for your thoughts there on the difference between a tabernacle and between the people themselves being the place where God dwells. In this building, they set aside a courtyard where people can gather. And if you've got a place where people can gather, the church where I go, they have a courtyard. When you arrive, you can be welcomed and you can have something to eat and drink before you go in. And when you come out, people stay for half an hour or so afterwards, chatting and talking, because there is someone to talk to and there's something to eat and drink there. I think that is really good in the church that I attend. In this church, they had special garments for people to wear, and in Catholic and Anglican church, they may have special garments, and yet in more evangelical churches, they often don't have those garments. In Anglican and Catholic church, they might have an organ, play organ music. No. And then in a more evangelical church, they might have a guitar. And so there are differences here. And again, there are cultural differences and benefits and limitations in these different approaches. In Moses' time, they had a special service for setting aside the priests. But also in our time, there can be a special service for people who are being baptized, for people who are being prayed for and confirmed. There can be a special service for each of these events that take place. And there can be a special remembrance for these times. And I think these celebrations can be very valuable. They have an altar of incense, and prayer is much like that. They had donations financially that you could make, and there were 3 different offerings that you could offer financially, and so they were a part of what they did. And then there was the anointing of oil, and then there was incense. So there are many things that we can read about here that have some application. And then there is a return to the discussion of the Sabbath in chapter 31. And then in chapter 32, we have the very bad development where they build a golden calf. And so there's a warning here of the danger that if the wrong things come into your people and come into your church practices, then dreadful things can happen. And then as a result of that, the 10 Commandment tablets were broken, and then there was a new giving of the 10 Commandments, which is the book of Deuteronomy, which we will come to in the next week after we come back again. The book of Deuteronomy reminds me that sometimes, even though we try and build a good church with good people, sometimes the laws can be broken, the tablets can be broken, our connection with God can be broken, and bad things creep in. And in this case, it was the golden calf. and with the golden calf, things got bad. And then there can be a new beginning. And sometimes churches and gatherings need a new beginning. And then there can be new laws given. And Deuteronomy means second giving of the law. And they had to move beyond just legalism and hope they could start again. And then with the coming of Jesus, we get another new giving of the law, which brings more life within as well. So we would look to Jesus as the new life. So we're drawing now to the end of our look at Exodus, which has been the task for today, for Thursday. When we meet next Monday, we're not meeting at the usual time. We're meeting, instead of 9 o'clock, we're meeting 3 hours later. So on Monday, we meet at 12 noon, not 9 o'clock. And same thing, I'll send a reminder out on Sunday and Monday. Instead of 9 a.m., we'll meet at 12 noon. And then we'll look at the next 3 books in the Pentateuch, which are Numbers and Leviticus and Deuteronomy. And we'll look at the sacrifices there and look at the giving of the law further and how law can help us. And then we'll move to look at Jesus and application and see how we need to move beyond legalism in law to grace and love for to see more happening. Now, the things that we've covered today can also be looked at in your essay. And so in your assignments, you have questions that relate to the things that we've covered today. And tomorrow, Friday, rather than meeting, I'm wanting you to spend tomorrow, Friday, working on your assignments. And I suggest that you begin with assignment 1 and then you move on to assignment 2 and work your way through the assignments tomorrow, Friday. So you should all have a copy of this. If you don't have a copy or if anything is missing, then please get in touch, send me an email to drsamhay@gmail.com. So if you don't have these details, and you can also contact Purim, who also can give you the email. So drsamhay@gmail.com is my email address. And if you have any questions or if you want to send me some answers that you've done and you want feedback on them, then send them to me and I can help you with them. One of the first things we ask you to do is to find 2 books on the Pentateuch, such as Sailhammer or the other books that you have been given. And everyone should have an outline, I think, of what we have covered with the Pentateuch. And in the outline, it does outline, and I will send a copy of the outline out to you if you don't have one already. And so in the outline, there are a list of books there. So we could look at that list of books and that would help you. So I'll send that out to you, and that will give you some guidelines there as well that you'll be able to use. And so your first one is to write about a page on 2 books that we use to study the Pentateuch. Another place you can find the books is go to Google Scholar and find books such as Sailhammer is one of the books there, or the other books. Assignment 2 asks you to look at least 3 scholarly articles, such as the ones we look at each day, and then just write a paragraph. So annotated bibliography simply means a paragraph, about 300 words, a third of a page, and so 1 page could cover those. If you want to get higher marks, then write a bit more. If you want to get higher marks, then look for more resources on Google Scholar, interact with them a bit more and develop the ideas a bit more. and you could do well and get higher marks. I felt when Sush was talking about some of those extra ideas about temple does one thing, priest does one thing, but God living in you does more. I thought that's the sort of writing that would get higher marks. And so any of you, if you want to write that bit extra about what it means, that would give higher marks. And a quick way to find that is to go to books or to go to journal articles to find that. And then third, you're asked to prepare just a one-page little handout that you get to hand to people on the Pentateuch. Maybe you might want to leave that till later, till we've finished the Pentateuch, but you could look at this handout there and we could discuss that further next week. And so in the handout, there could be a diagram, there could be some notes. You might have, say, the 5 books, and you might write about the 5 books, and there might be some notes and a diagram. So if you were teaching about the Pentateuch in the church, what's the one page that you would hand out to the people who are there? And then you could start work tomorrow if you've got time. You may not have time, and you've got another 2 weeks after the end of next week to complete this. But tomorrow you might want to start working on the one page where you discuss what's the best methods, such as thinking about genre and historical background and authorship. And then, speaking of authorship, question 2, we value Moses as being an author of the 5 books, but possibly others did some editing. What can we find on this? So this does take a couple of references that tell us about this. Just one would do, but 2 or 3 will give you a high mark. And then we have the other questions there. So sure, anyone else, do you have any questions about the assignments to work on tomorrow? And then we meet again Monday at lunchtime at 12 o'clock noon on Monday. Thoughts or questions, Sush or anyone?
So we have to cover 4 questions tomorrow.
Yeah, I think so. I think you could actually spend some time, I think. Question 3, you've got to choose one of the questions on Genesis. So you could work on that tomorrow. We've done Genesis. Obviously, if you don't have time tomorrow, you have time in 2 weeks' time when you've got a couple more weeks to do it. Today we did work on Exodus and the themes. And tomorrow, I think it would be good to do some work, if you can, on the Exodus questions. Question 1, discuss the main theme of Exodus. So you could choose one theme. So you could choose one theme in Exodus, which could be the Passover. That's a good theme. It could be liberation and freedom in Exodus, or it could be tabernacle. So that's one question you could choose, or you choose let them make a sanctuary, which is what you and I were talking about, Sush. Or you could choose discuss, contrast, the Pentateuch presents possession of the land. So Exodus, they take to the land. So there's 2 or 3 questions that you could choose there. So any questions about the assignments?
So could you please send us this one, because this has been corrected by you. So you have been worse. So I think it will help us to solve something, and you have already pasted that link also. So can you please send us?
Yeah, I'll send the link, and everyone should have received email of today's notes about Exodus from me. And then everyone on Tuesday or Wednesday should have received notes about the assignments. But I will send some more notes either later this afternoon, later today or this afternoon, or tomorrow morning. I'll send some more notes on that as well. If you have any questions, then get in touch and we could touch base. Should I meet for half an hour at lunchtime tomorrow with them at 1 o'clock? I don't have anything on. No, I don't think so. Does anyone want to meet tomorrow for half an hour at 9 a.m. or you don't need to? Or you could meet for half an hour about 12 o'clock tomorrow if you need to, or we just meet Monday.
What about
Put your
Sunday?
hand up. Desperately want to meet tomorrow yeah.
So what about on Sunday?
Yeah, so Phoebe's a bit interested in meeting tomorrow just to discuss the essay questions at the beginning of the day. So I'll be available if anyone wants to meet tomorrow at the usual time, 9 o'clock, from 9 till 9:30. I'll be available for half an hour just to run through the assignment questions. So if you find that helpful, tomorrow for half an hour, then that would be 9 to 9:30. If you wish to discuss assignment questions. Yep.
Yes, sir.
So that's
We'll join on tomorrow 9:30 9 a.m. sir.
yeah. Sounds good.
Yes,
So
sir.
that's all. It'll just be half an hour just to discuss. These are some of the assignment questions. All right. So I'll see you all tomorrow.
Sir,
Thank you.
sir, one thing.
Yes.
Sir, could you
Yeah.
please send us this assignment notes?
Yes, I'll do that. I'll send some assignment notes. Yep.
Yeah, we have already got, but this you have been corrected and we have added some words. So yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So I'll send some further assignment notes. Yep. Sounds good. Yep.
Okay, sir.
Let's meet
Sounds
tomorrow.
good.
I'm also ready.
Okay, sir. Thank
All
you so
right.
much. We'll be
Yeah.
there
Thank
on
Okay.
tomorrow
you.
morning.
Bye
Yeah,
bye,
thank you for
sir.
encouraging.
Okay,
See you
sir.
soon. Have a
Thank you so
good
much for
day.
teaching, sir. Okay, sir. Bye
Yeah.
bye. See you tomorrow, sir. See you
Thank
tomorrow
you.
to 9 a.m. Sir, bye bye. Have a good time, sir.
Yeah. Thank you, each one. See you tomorrow.